And with that, I'll open up for a few minutes for any questions or comments.
I think where we're getting off track is we use the previous year as the benchmark. I mean, 2% here, next year it's 3%. Maybe we level out and we only go up or drop a 0.5%. Then we're up another 3%. Cumulatively, these are huge increases over a 10-year span. I think we need to set a benchmark and say, look, this is the benchmark budget. You know, we're 10% over it right now, or we're 2% over it. We're not. A high budget last year doesn't. When you had a high budget last year, and I'm not saying that last year's budget was high, I'm just as a point, and then you say, but we're only at 2% increase now. Well, it was 10% last year. That's 12% over 2 years. That's huge. I think we need to step back and not use the previous year as a benchmark. You set a year. Let's go back 10 years and look at what the budget was, and then maybe we need to look at how many pupils we had and how much staff we had then too. So the way I see it, we've lost about 150 students since the implementation of the new SAU, and we've gained quite a few staff and even a principal. I think we maybe need to look at that as well, put everything in perspective.
Well, and you raised a good point, and hopefully it was illustrated in the PowerPoint presentation, is when the school board goes through their budget preparation to what they present to the budget committee, what they have looked at is, and really has been a key goal by at least the budget committee and the school board, was that please look at per pupil size. Look at how many students you have in a classroom and what the ratio is within the school board policy. And we have had some adjustments over the last several years on that. I think what the budget committee does very well is we spend, over the last few years, a lot of time on what is the class size ratio and those type of conversations. So what I would say in answer to that is that has been something that both the budget committee and the school board have been doing collectively together. One of the directions that the school board gave to the administration this year as we start the process is we'd really like you to look at what is the default budget. If the budget doesn't pass this year as a beginning point, we would like your budget to come in at least lower than that. And this year what you saw coming forward is a budget that was less than what the default budget would have been. So that has been a starting point as we've gone forward. And it's been a collaborative effort between the budget committee and the school board to try to reach that. And again, we did have this deceleration of budget increases over the last several years, and the goal of the board is to continue forward with that. Superintendent Domenico, in one of his presentations, actually one of the first one, was put up a slide on what are some of the budget accelerators, what are some of the mandates, or some of the things we've been faced in this economic climate that we have to find additional money for. Escalation of the cost of fuel was a challenge for us. So what other areas of the budget can we reduce that doesn't affect direct instruction on students or program that we can reduce to offset it? So that's just some of the details or some of the things we think about when we go through the budget process.
That's what I want to hear.
Yeah. Yes.
Would the school board consider a cost per student metric?
I think, as the chairman alluded to earlier, we'll have a future presentation on the cost per student, because there's some commonalities that you can pull from when you look at cost per student, but also there's some other things that we have to take in consideration when you look at cost per student. So I think that's a great conversation for a future school board meeting. I could go on for another half hour on that, but I think your point is well taken. There's a lot of information out there on per pupil costs. There's a lot of misunderstanding on how you compare those. So as the chairman said, that is something that we should have and will have in a near future meeting.
Okay, the other comment I might make is in the union contracts, it's basically the teachers and the staff get increases regardless of the economic environment, and also when the benefits go up, the contract provides for, basically if 95 or 85% of those benefits are paid for by contract, the cost is automatically passed on to the taxpayer. So would the board consider not signing a contract that mandated increases in salary and the taxpayer absorbing the benefit costs increases.
Well, we will be coming up into, we're actually going to the last year of the teachers' collective bargaining agreement. So we will be starting very shortly, in the next couple of months, the process of collective bargaining. What I can say is that that was a discussion that went back and forth between the collective bargaining unit and the school board on what salary increases would be and also changes in the benefits. When we came to a tentative agreement between the two parties, that was information that was shared at a public meeting, and then subsequently a separate warrant article was voted and accepted by the voters. We'll be getting that process again in probably 1 or 2 months for the upcoming year.
Yeah, just make one more comment on the budget that was on the ballot. Okay, so as a voter, you really don't have much choice when you see that school budget. You see only one thing you can vote on, and if you vote no, it's higher. So, there is no choice that the voter has, so to speak. And I don't know if this is legal or not, and perhaps I would look to you for some guidance, but can you have two choices on the ballot, A and B of two different values? Could one of them be petitioned?
Well, I guess there's a comment then and an answer. The first comment is, through the budgetary process, all the deliberations, actually starting early on, the deliberations of the school board, when they're putting together and finalizing their budget they're going to present to the budget committee, that's done in open session. So that there is a section or a time that public input can be given in that process. Then also, it is the responsibility of the budget committee to hold their meetings in public and also have a public hearing on the budget prior to the deliberative session. So that's another opportunity for the voters to come forward during the meetings and give some of their input. And I know the chairman, Mr. Hickok, has been pretty liberal in his words on allowing input at towards the end of each meeting, and at the public hearing, that is an opportunity just before the final vote of the budget committee. There is a public hearing to get public input. To answer your question, there has to be one budget figure brought forward by the budget committee on the school district budget. So you couldn't have, can you vote for this one or this other one? Skip.
Skip Murphy, Guilford Glen Road. I have a question on how the school board presented the petition warrant this past year. The normal convention is that the petition warrant is recognized, and the first people to speak on that warrant article are those that have actually brought it forward. And yet the board decided to have the school board council stand right up in the beginning and basically taint the conversation by declaring it advisory only, when the whole purpose of that warrant article was to be binding based on the previous vote. And I am curious as to why the board decided to go that route, to go against what is normal convention. And I also wish to find out what the board's confidence level of what they have in this lawyer, given that in going out and doing a few Google searches, there are some places where she has been overruled, like in Stafford, where she basically and blithely led the school board there saying, well, you can use an equipment lease to buy land such that you don't have to go through a supermajority vote to purchase that land. And she was subsequently slapped down for that. There are other instances as well where she has not exactly provided, at least in my understanding of it, where she's provided perhaps the best legal advice possible.
And to comment on your first question, Skip, at the deliberative session, as the moderator begins a session, what he indicates is that he starts each session loosely following Robert's Rule of Order. So although it is the deliberative session that is actually held by the budget committee in the school board, it's the moderator's sets the agenda for the meeting. So it's the moderator's decision on how that will progress. So he chose to identify right up front an explanation on that it was our attorney's interpretation that was not a binding warrant article, but it was one that was just a recommendation or advisory only.
Follow-up
It's
question
not
on
really
that?
our place to,
Yeah.
right now, to discuss the qualifications of the school district lawyer. It's not appropriate for this meeting. It's not relevant to this specific topic. Any further questions or comments?
Just one parting mention. These are questions that seem to have come up on an annual basis. We will be posting them on the website and then also keeping them there for a period of time because as members of the budget committee here today, some of these are the common questions that come up of, whose budget is it anyway, and do we have a say on the bottom line? And it can be a confusing process. So we're going to post them up there. People can reference them, and then if you've got additional questions, you can give our office a call, and we'll try to help you as much as possible. But thank you for your questions. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Scott.